Mickie Kennedy, founder of eReleases, is an expert at helping small businesses, authors, and startups increase their visibility and credibility through Tier 1 press release distribution. Small businesses and startups desperately need press release services they can actually afford, which gives them access to the media and the national newswire, all with a personal touch. PR can benefit businesses by increasing visibility, improving SEO, and generating meaningful insights. It can also be more cost-effective than paid advertising and can have a big impact on small businesses. In this episode, Mickie shares his journey in the world of PR and press releases. He discusses the power of storytelling in press releases and the importance of finding your unique selling proposition. He emphasizes the impact of earned media and how it builds trust and credibility. He also highlights the need for personalized and targeted press releases tailored to different publications and provides examples of successful PR campaigns with strategic and creative approaches.
As a child, I loved to write. I always wrote stories. I wanted to be a writer when I grew up. And then when I went to college, I studied literature and I took writing classes, and I really fell in love with poetry. And so I went and got a Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing with an emphasis in poetry, which is like a 3-year program. And when I was done with that, my career plan was to wait tables and write poetry. And so I did that for a summer after graduating. And I realized, my ankles hurt, my knees hurt, my back hurt. And I just felt like emotionally just drained at the end of every shift. I read nothing. I wrote nothing. And so I need to pivot to a safe office job. And of course, I ended up working for a startup. I was employee number 3. So there went my free time. So one of the things they tasked me with was to figure out how to write press releases, because they're like, you have a writing background. And so I wrote press releases and sent them out. We had to use fax at the time, so I got really intimate with plugging 100 numbers into a fax machine that held exactly 100 numbers, and then sending announcements out. They didn't do anything. And I was just like, ugh. And so I just sort of explored, writing and the places that we wanted to be in. And I noticed a pattern that journalists really like a story arc. And I was just giving them a sort of like a sample of data and not really talking about what the data was. So I had some inbound and outbound traffic between the United States and several Caribbean countries. And there was one country at the time that had more inbound and outbound traffic than all the other countries. It was like way more than the others. And I explored that, and I realized that they were a call center for 1-900 numbers, which were really popular, I guess 26 years ago. And people would call a 1-900 number, and their phone account would ding them for 50 cents a minute, and they'd get their horoscope, or they'd call another number and talk to a pet psychic, or another one for relationship advice. And the prices were anywhere from, I think, 50 cents to a couple of dollars. It was just something that was done. When I wrote that release and sent it out, it got picked up by The Economist, the Financial Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, and 3 telecom trade publications. And I was like, whoa, I did something right here. And so I continued to do analysis and figure out what the story was and sending them out. Like, I noticed that in countries where there was like double-digit economic growth, especially like not like super industrialized countries, but countries that were sort of in flux. There was a lot of growth, but it was preceded like 3 years before that with really big growth in their telecom traffic outside of themselves. So not domestic telecom traffic, but international telecom traffic. And people really liked that. That could be a leading indicator. All of a sudden, we started selling our research and reports to hedge funds and investment firms. And before that, we only sold to telecom analysts and phone companies. And so it was a real new avenue. People really looked at the data and it just was like every release I did, we got pickup, and it was just really great. And I'm just like, why aren't other people doing this? It felt like I was cutting a faucet on and just, producing money with sales coming in. Around the same time that I was beginning to get luck, there was more and more journalists contacting me and saying, hey, in the future, rather than faxing it, could you just email it to me? And I was like, sure, that's a lot better than faxing with these stupid machines that take all day. It literally, for 100 numbers, I would start in the morning, and that thing would just screech all day long. Even after close, it was still attempting. And there was always numbers that we couldn't get through for whatever reason. But it was an exciting time, and I thought, wow, email. I could get a bunch of journalist email addresses and just send them press releases. And so I had mentioned it to my boss, and he was like, it sounds like an interesting idea. And so I did, in my evenings and weekends, even my lunch breaks, just reach out to journalists. They were all over the internet in the beginning. They were in bulletin boards and places like that, and they all were like, yeah, this sounds great. And today email is not so great for journalists. What has come out since then are these media databases. And when a golf club company spends $15,000 to $25,000 a year for access to a media database, they don't like that there's only about 2,500 journalists, that are in the, reporting on golf or the golfing industry. So they're just like, they start talking themselves into other industries. Like, hey, bankers buy golf, and businessmen buy golf clubs, and they play golf. And so let's send this to financial analysts, banking reporters, and business reporters, which do not cover golf clubs under almost any circumstance. Maybe the Wall Street Journal might do a Father's Day or occasional mention of a gift, but it's rare. And a financial analyst is never going to cover it. So journalists are receiving so much spam now, where people are just like, hey, I've got 500,000 people in my database, I'm just going to start blasting. And so it is an unfortunate time for email. The good news for eReleases is that a little over 10 years ago, PR Newswire reached out to us and said that they liked what we were doing, serving small businesses and entrepreneurs, and felt like maybe we could add a wire distribution to our email sends. And they were really wanting to do a state or city level distribution. And I really resisted that. I said, look, these guys want national news. They're deserving of it. And I didn't think anything would come of it, because PR Newswire today charges over $1,600 to move a 600-word press release. And so, my customers at the time, I think, were paying $299 for me to do the email send. And so there was not a lot of margin there for me to add a wire. But, we talked. I think that what I discovered was that they have an overnight editorial team that just has to be there in case there's breaking news, a recall, train accident, or someone needs to get something to the Asian markets. And so they sit there for many hours with nothing to do. And I said, hey, I could schedule all of my releases by default for the next business day. So that means your overnight editorial team could set them up, and it wouldn't cost you any additional labor, because that was one of their considerations with the volume of releases we were doing. And so, finally they agreed. They gave me a national distribution. And so, people always go, why would I choose eReleases when I can just go to PR Newswire? And I'm like, because you're going to spend $1,600 with PR Newswire, but through us, we have a new customer special that you'll probably spend $350, or maybe if it's a bit longer, $500. Substantially cheaper than going directly to the wire. And in addition to that, the wire also gave us some additional bonuses that we add on. There's something that they used to call micro lists that now they call Cision Influencer List. And with our PR Pro, you can add that at no charge. So it really is a real benefit to our user base. I tell people, we sort of act as a co-op on behalf of small businesses, because our buying power was enough that when we negotiated with the Wire, eventually they saw it as a win-win, and we move anywhere from 10,000 to 12,000 releases a year. It's a lot of releases. I get to see a lot of releases not work, and I also see those releases that do, and I feel like my job in the business, because I'm not in the day-to-day anymore, is to educate people on where those opportunities are and the strategic types of releases they should be considering, rather than the new hire or the doomed product announcement release, which, product announcements can be great, but a lot of people do it wrong.
Yeah, and now we've got like a nice history of how PR has evolved over the last 20-ish years. So, before the internet was really popping, it was all fax machines. And then now you were like asked, like, okay, can you just email this to me? Email became a bit too kind of spammy for some people. Maybe they posted their email somewhere in a forum and it was easily searchable on Google. They posted it on Twitter for someone to send them something. So now their email is not really the best place. But what I've picked up on here is now the kind of PR game, at least in your world, is all about those connections and that networking you've done throughout your long career in this industry. So, hats off to you for being an absolutely networking boss there. What I want to know is, though, from the first press release you wrote, which was just a list of documents or a list of data, to now this kind of storytelling arc that you have that you're talking about, what is the kind of things that we're including to make an effective press release? Because your press releases sound like they're getting results, and it would be a shame if I didn't ask you what the key kind of components are of a press release.
Sure. So I think the really important things are, what's your story? A lot of people don't realize that they have a story, a journey, what either led them to start their business or start a product. And a lot of people don't like to share that. And a lot of small businesses feel like, oh, that would make me seem really small. I want to be appear like a big corporation. And there's a reason that everybody that goes on Shark Tank, and I mention that because before most people go on Shark Tank, they do a press release before their episode airs, and the producers mentioned that a lot of people have had good experiences with us, so we've worked with a lot of people who've appeared on Shark Tank. And we've done a lot of big campaigns for like Squatty Potty in the past, and Manscaped and some others that went beyond just that initial release. And so, one of the things they do when they come out is they don't open with what their product is and let me tell you how it works. They open with their story. And it's often a vulnerability or an obstacle they overcame. It's sometimes can be inspirational, but it's very authentic. And it's like, my dad died and I was in a dark place and I'd been laid off. And I remembered we used to make this thing and sell it at the flea market. And I just felt like, could I get this done, and manufactured and really build this into a real business? And it's like, whoa, all of a sudden we're caring. We have this empathy for them. It really humanizes them. We care. And that's the power of a story and relating to someone as a human being. And, the people at Shark Tank, they know it and they have trained it to everybody that steps on to share what your story is. Be vulnerable. You don't try to appear like you're a giant Microsoft or a logo or something like that. You're people, and you hurt, and you've had challenges and obstacles, and it's just one of those things that I think that taking that and working with that in your press releases can work really well. Sometimes it's not the focus of the release, but maybe, the releases sort of go a top down, and we usually have a boilerplate or about section towards the end of the release. It might be a place to put that and recycle that story again and again. Late 1990s, early 2000, there was almost every article that was mentioned eBay, which was like a media darling, talked about how the founder created it to sell his girlfriend's Pez collection, and then realized, I could use this to, make it available to everyone. And it has since come out that whole story was manufactured by a PR firm. But it shows why they did that, because the story is important, and people recycled and used that, and it was just something that people could relate to. Like, oh, this person had a challenge and they overcame it. You see this again and again with articles and blog posts about Kickstarter campaigns. This person was looking for this solution. There were so many things that were close, but it didn't do X, Y, and Z. And that's what this person needed it to do. And so they decided they were going to make it themselves. And this is what they've done so far. And they've, got a factory in China that's willing to make it. And they just need to get the molds made and this, that, and the other. And they're talking about the production cycle and how long it would be. And the next thing you know, you're like clicking on the Kickstarter campaign and you see that it's like under $100. And you're like, I want this person to persevere and make it. So I'm going to back them. I don't need this product, but I just have this outpouring of emotion. And this emotional response happens with earned media. And that's what we call it when someone gets an article. We call it earned media. You didn't pay for it. It just happened that a journalist chose to write about you. And when a journalist writes about you, it does serve as like third-party corroboration. It is such a strong signal of credibility, and it is that signal of trust that creates a sea of trust radius around you, and in a way that advertising doesn't. When I see an ad, my blinders are up. I might click through occasionally, and I'm like, okay, I'll add that to my research later, but I don't trust anything they say, and I'm going to put it up against several other people and compare it and make sure it's the right company. But when people click on an article, they very rarely price shop or look at other people in the market. They get this feeling of like, wow, this is a really cool company. I think I just want to do business with them. It's a little bit less immediate with B2B, but they do have a smaller sales cycle, and they do become part of the lead pipeline. And that earned media does go a long way to making it more likely that they will buy from you than they don't. And so that's the one thing that earned media is so good at it. And a lot of people, including my customers, don't even realize that it works outside of the audience of people that read the article. You can take that link to that article, put it in your social media. You can put it in your newsletters. Put it in your leads pipeline, because if that lead is someone that got to 49%, but they never got over the hump, and they're not going to do business with you, this could be the thing that gets them over that, and it could increase your conversion rate. As a matter of fact, earned media is known to increase conversions. People add logos to the website. I think that's a very weak signal, but it is one that does increase conversions. What's even better is getting the articles in front of them. I had one client who was a local carpet company in New Jersey, and I can't think of a more non-newsworthy company. And we did a 1-year campaign of 12 releases for them, and we at month 5 we brainstormed because nothing had happened, and they talked about their biggest enemy being the big box home improvement stores. And I said, I think that I could create a David versus Goliath press release that would play very well in the trade publications. Here's the problem, I pointed out to them. Their audience doesn't read those trade publications. And I said, but it could be a strong signal to get to these trade publications and be able to use those online and to share with your clients. And they said, oh, I've got it. They're like, we yes, do that. We've got an idea. And so at the end of the year, they had about 30 clips that they had gotten. They got in their local newspaper. They got in New Jersey Magazine, but all the rest were floor trade publications. And so they put them in a book they called a brag book. And every time their sales guy went to someone's home and gave them a quote, they would open it and say, look, we're not going to come in the cheapest. We've been doing this for 20 some years. Unlike the big box home improvement stores, you will not be calling us in 3 years to move, for you to move all of your furniture so that we can come in and restretch your carpet or fix a seam. We do it right from the beginning. Here we are. We've been picked up in Floor Trade Weekly. We've been picked up in, Floor Coverings Today, this place, that place, local newspaper, New Jersey Magazine. And when they leave, these people, like, wow, they're a few $100 more, but I am very comfortable with them. And as a result of adding that brag book, which they said extended the sales conversation maybe 2 minutes. No one read the whole articles. They just looked and saw it, saw the headlines, saw them mentioned, saw the masthead of the news outlet, and as a result, their conversions increased 17%. So almost 1 out of every 5 sales they were previously losing, they were now getting, and so it made a huge difference from them, because a 17% increase was a real driver of increased conversions for them, and really was a brilliant idea. And the brag book was all on them. They thought of that. I was just thinking of putting on the website, maybe incorporating some kind of thing, flyers or something you gave people. But having this big binder that with the glossy pages and put in plastic and just made to look really nice. It was very smart of them, and that's what happens. I mean, earned media does something that doesn't. You don't see it anywhere else. I had one client that came to me and said, "Hey, according to my analytics, we got like 460 visitors from this article, and it looks like almost 250 people bought. Is that possible?" And I'm like, it is. Not everybody who read the article clicked through. So who knows? Maybe 2,000 people read the article, but the people that got invested, they clicked on it. And in their case, they were a affordable consumer product. I say it's more of a impulse buy. And I said, yeah, that worked. And they said, wow, our pay-per-click landing page has never done better than 9%. And this is like over 50%. And I'm like, yeah, it does happen with earned media. I've even had some people send traffic to an article, even though they have no, what do you call it? It used to be a cookie, but no tracking ability for that traffic.
Pixels, I think they call them pixels and cookies.
Yeah,
and all that
pixels
kind of stuff.
and stuff like that. They did that even though they said, we're just sending to this traffic blindly, but we know that we're getting some sales from it, and we're just testing it to see. And we may even think about incorporating the article on our website and see how much of a loss we get from that. And I think that they did end up getting quite a bit of a loss from that, and so they ended up playing with their existing landing pages and incorporating snapshots of it, so that when you clicked on it, it would sort of bring it up and show you the article, and that worked a lot better, because it did, when it brought it up, it didn't show the URL path. And so when people went and saw an article that wasn't on the news site, it did throw up a little hesitancy with them, and I think that sort of killed some of the conversions. But it's interesting, this earned media thing is something that is just something that I've seen again and again work for people. And despite that, I see a lot of people just getting PR wrong, and I think that people often treat it as something that they're told to do, like their boss says, get a release out. And so they just want to look at what their competitor did and sort of do something similar and just send it out and say it's done. And I'm like, slow down. Let's learn a little bit here. Let's put some thought into it. Let's incorporate things like your story. Let's make sure that we have your unique selling proposition, or USP, in there. And people are like, what's that? I'm like, well, it's the one thing that every startup knows. It's that elevator pitch of who they are and how they are different from every other company in the marketplace. And when I tell people that, and they say, well, we're really not different than everybody else. We're very similar to a lot of companies. And I'm just like, really? You can't find anything that you do that's different? Like, not really. And I said, well, that's a bad position to be in, because eventually you're only going to compete in price and maybe how quickly you can deliver. But I have talked to people who didn't think they had a USP, and they've mentioned that, we have really good onboarding, and we have like over 300 hours of videos on every little tactic or little hook that you'd want to do with the software, and basically anything that people would want to look up, it's there. I'm like, that is a huge moat, and that's a huge unique selling proposition, and they weren't even including that in the sales process. It was just like, oh, we're going to onboard you, you also have access to this library. I was like, you need to lead with that, because that is a reason that someone would pick you over someone else, especially if your pricing is pretty similar, which, in most of these commodity type businesses they are.
And something I'm curious about is I'm kind of in my mind building a picture of a PR kind of press release as almost like a CV or a covering letter for a job, something that you have to keep updated and you might have to tweak depending on what publication you're putting it forward to. Am I kind of right in thinking that, or is that completely off?
I think that there's some similarities in that there are elements that you can recycle again, like the boilerplate, but generally press release is completely a new headline and a new hook. What you're focusing on generally is different from time to time. Even when the carpet company that we worked with, we did different approaches of the David versus Goliath. So it was similar, but we would tweak it and change it. So we would do a release that focused on how do you advertise and market against the big box home improvement stores, and would talk about your what your print ads should look like in your local paper and things like that. We would talk about a release about how the phone consultation should go. And one of the things that you want to do is when people start calling around and just asking how much is installation per square foot, they're kind of price shopping already, and they don't want you to come in and measure yet. They're not at that stage until they've narrowed it down to a couple of people. But that's the time to sort of inject in there saying, hey, one thing that you should be aware of is if you get a quote from Home Depot or Lowe's, they call a list of people who have a home improvement license in the state. They never ask them, do you install carpet? So the guy that shows up tomorrow to install your carpet might be someone they called who's a roofer and didn't have any work that day, and he just went to YouTube and he's going to try and figure it out because money's money. And so get those conversations going and get people to start to doubt things and to slow down a little bit and really consider you. And so sales conversations are part of PR, because PR is hopefully going to drive sales. And so I think it's a good complement to sales. That being said, marketers generally don't like PR very much. You can put a tracking URL in a press release, it'll never be respected. They're going to kill it, and it's just going to be your website and without any trailing identifiers or anything like that. Also, there are many instances where you don't get a URL in the article. New York Times says they never post a URL. Despite that, I've gotten them to do it once. So they've made one exception. We created a resource page for a survey we did, and it had so much information and infographics and stuff that they did link to it, and they broke their own rule. But most of these people don't. The good news is that it does benefit you. People will open a new browser and search for you, and they will find you. That's also advertise on your brand name, especially when you're doing PR, because people will search for you. And if you've just been spending, little bit, up it a little bit while this campaign's going on, because you want people to be able to find you easily. Another thing is Google gives you SEO credit for articles that have no URL in it. It's called implied linking, and they have a patent on it. And it's basically like if Google can read an article in, say, the Wall Street Journal, and they know that contextually they're talking about you, you get the credit as if there's a link to your website, even though there is no link. And so we see that all the time, where people get very authoritative articles and their rankings just improve. And I talked to an SEO guy, and he explained it to me and sent me the patent and some articles about it. And I was like, wow, I've had people see this, and I couldn't explain it because, it seems likely that getting an article in the Wall Street Journal is important, but if they're not linking to you, how does that work? And that's exactly how it works for that implied linking. And so, I feel like PR is one of these great things that if you attack it and you put some creativity behind it and you slow down and learn a little bit and try to be strategic, you can have really good results and very meaningful results. And it can be substantially cheaper than paid advertising. I have on my website, eReleases.com, the top case study on that page is for Dining Bond Initiative, which was a little initiative set up very shortly during the pandemic, meant to only live a little while to help restaurants that were closed at the time. And I sent out the release at no charge to help them out. It was mostly a volunteer effort, but it generated over 100 articles. We actually quit counting because so many daily papers picked it up, and we just covered the bigger papers. And it generated over $10 million in revenue to help small businesses for, just hitting send and going on the wire. $349 is what it would have cost for the new customer special, and it generated $10 million. And I always tell these jaded marketers who think that PR doesn't work, I'm like, well, where have you ever spent $349 and poured out $10 million on the other side? And they can't. It doesn't exist. Now, I will tell you, it's not very common in PR either, but it is a wild example to show you that if you have a meaningful message that really resonates with the media, it can really take advantage of the leverage opportunity with a newswire. It can really go out to a lot of different places, and it is really exciting when that happens, especially when it happens with, in this case, sort of a grassroots effort to help restaurants, but also small businesses in general. They need every little bit of help and push, and PR can be a really big differentiator for these companies.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Like, it seems like a lot of marketers want to use the flashy cool thing. Like, oh, look, there's a TikTok page with 1 million followers. Let's advertise there. And it's like, realistically, that's going to be a swipe away. But someone who's reading something, or someone who is reading, a article online, they're going to be much more engaged. They're probably going to have, all the statistics you want, higher IQ and higher disposable income and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like in today's day and age, a lot of people are like taking all the facts of what works versus what doesn't work, and they're going like, right, okay, I think influencer marketing is the way forward. And I'm wondering for you, how would you view influencer marketing as a form of like PR outreach? Would you use that as a way to kind of promote a product, or is it always just print and kind of online based media that you go target with your press releases?
Right. So the good news is the wire does reach influencers, and for example, the wire gives journalists access, which is important because when you log in to PR Newswire, the press releases are there publicly on their website. Anyone can see them and pull them down. But if you have the journalist log in, you can create a very customized feed that you sculpt to exactly what you cover. So if I'm an Instagram influencer in fashion, which is really big, there's a lot of Instagram influencers that are really big into fashion, and I have access to the wire, I can log in and look at fashion press releases, but I can also create exclusions, like keywords that might mention certain retailers like Target and stuff like that, because I'm just looking for high-end stuff, and maybe capture stuff that mentions certain boutique brands that are higher caliber type brands, and so I can make it very customized. So when I have journalists log in, I can see very tailored news just for me, and it's extremely valuable to them. On TikTok, for example, I follow a guy called Snackalator, who each week he does a roundup of new snacks hitting grocery store shelves. And he says, I pulled these photos from the press releases. And so he gets them out before anybody else does. As soon as the company releases a press release about an impending snack that's going to be hitting shelves, he's there talking about a roundup of all of them. And it really gives him an edge because he's getting great content before anybody else does. And so if you waited until they actually reach some of your shelves, you wouldn't have that advantage. And he does really well. He also does that with fast food, usually once a week, with a roundup of new foods and desserts and stuff like that hitting the fast food restaurants. And again, pulls all the photos from press releases, and that's where he gets the announcements. And so there is room for influencers to be like media sources who take press releases and then incorporate them, and that is earned media, and that's good. And but the one where people then go to the influencer and pay them to create like an ad or a spotlight or something like that, I don't do paid. And I tell people, if that's for you, you can go explore that, learn it, try it, and stuff like that. And I know it works for some people, but I'm just not in paid, the pay to play. For me, it's an ethical line. I just want to focus on earned media, and there's still opportunities and room for that. But despite that, I do know that some people prefer that, and they're open to it. And it's just not something that interests me. It's never really interested me. I've always been like a purist and looking for the best experience. And I mean, you only have to look at Forbes and sort of their reputation, because there's a lot of people that pay for Forbes articles. And there are these, I don't know if they're bloggers or columnists that Forbes has on their website that pay a fee to Forbes for this access, and then they will write about other people and charge them. And it's just, that's not journalism. That's not good. Now, these articles never appear in the print publication, and I do think that they try to maintain integrity there. But I do think that being in Forbes, even if you get a real earned media article, has been discounted by the fact that other people can just pay for something similar and put screenshots on their website or send it out to people and things like that. So I don't know. I'm not a fan of the whole pay to play sort of thing, but there might be room for it. There's a lot of struggling media out there that are looking for ways in which to reinvent themselves, and I think that at the end of the day, one of the things that I think they will gravitate to is video. I think that video is a natural progression for news and the way that we consume things. I mean, it's so much better to watch that TikTok with that guy giving you the roundup than to read an article and seeing photos on a blog or something about a new product. And so there's something about the video experience, and I think that a lot of media outlets haven't figured out how to do video well yet, or how to incorporate video from clients, because I think that there will be a time when my clients will be uploading a lot more video and B-roll of their products and services and announcements, and making that available to journalists. And so maybe that's 5-10 years away, maybe sooner, but I do think that that's where we're heading.
I'm glad you gave me kind of a vision for the future there, because I was going to ask, are people meant to include their, photos in it? You said, yeah. And now you're saying video is the way forward. People are going to include their videos, or maybe even they include like graphics or, anything that will help you to make what content you want to make and talk about my product. Here you go, hand it over type thing. So, okay, we've got like an image of PR over time, what's best practices, what works, why it works, some of the results. But something that I'm really, really kind of curious about is you actually running your business. So you've got your business that you've been running for a long time now. What size is the business at? And also, how do you kind of function within the business? Are you still there writing press releases? Are you out there just doing sales all the time? What does that look like for you and eRelease?
So I left the day-to-day operations in April of 2015. I had terrible turnover in my business. Most employees lasted a year, and I just was unhappy with the staff. I always felt like they weren't saying things as well as I thought they could. And I was in a marketing mastermind with an HR professional from the UK named Nancy Schlesinger, and she said, "Mickie, I don't work for small businesses, but I am so tired of you wasting your time at these marketing masterminds when we're given the ability to talking about something like your staff." She goes, "I could probably interview the staff, your customers, look at your job postings, and immediately tell you what's wrong." And I was like, "Okay, do it." And so she did that, and she came back and said, "Mickie, it's you. You're a micromanager. The staff never feel appreciated, and they feel like you're constantly belittling them and telling them that they're not good enough." and I didn't see that, and so it was shocking. Now, I'm a poet. I'm not an MBA. When professionals tell me something, I trust them, and so I told her thanks. I'll try and fix it. And that later that day, when someone got off the phone, I literally walked up behind her and said, "Hey, next time when you talk to them, instead of saying this," and then I just stopped myself and I said, "Oh, I'm doing it again." And so that day, I got everybody together. We went into the break room and I said, "I'm going home." And they go, "Okay, why announce it?" I said, "I ain't coming back." I said, you could email me, you can text me, but I am not coming back into the office ever again. And I've come in a couple of times for like fun stuff like book club or little Christmas things, but I'm the fun boss now. I'm not the one belittling them. There was a senior editor who was there, a little bit older than everyone, and she said I would love to step up and just keep an eye on them. And she's like a mother figure, and she's the one who leads the office now. I have about 6 editors, managing editor, office assistant, project manager, and a few people who write for me, mostly on freelance basis. But that's pretty much it. And I have some developers and programmers that I feel like I'm going to always be in development. Things are always working and stuff like that. So that's basically the business. What do I do at home? I do education. I put together a free masterclass to try and teach my customers the strategic types of releases that they should be doing. And it's completely free. If any of the listeners want to check it out, it's a great place just to start. Because if you brainstorm through this video masterclass that is less than an hour long, you'll walk away with meaningful press releases that you should be considering as part of a PR campaign. And that's at eReleases.com/plan, PLAN. And like I said, it's a small commitment because I bought 20-hour courses and I log in and see how much is there. And I'm like, not today. And then it's like 2 years have passed. This is like less than an hour. You're in, you're out, and you will know more than a lot of people who work in public relations, because I don't think even they realize the real opportunities of trending press releases and the ones that are really resulting in lots of articles. And so that's a great place to start. Outside of that, I'm all about looking at the vision of what we should be considering, what kind of things should be added to our offerings, how to better position us in the marketplace. And, I love podcasts and just, teaching people about the opportunities that exist. And I feel like this is a real benefit to me.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned about how you decided to go, oh my gosh, clearly I'm a micromanager. I better get out of here, not do too much, not cause too much of a ruckus or too much of a stir here. And it's worked out. You've looked at it and gone, yeah, that was the right decision. But kind of now you're in this space where you're like, what do I do for my business, right? Am I an analytical person? Am I a creative person? Am I the big business corporate person? Like, where do I kind of fit in? So I'm wondering for you now, how do you balance that kind of still being a creative and then having to be, in some regards, a business analyst, making sure that the numbers are making sense and the employees are right, all that kind of stuff, because you're still involved in the business, but you're not as involved as you once were.
Right. Yeah, I'm still writing the checks and giving people raises and coordinating with the managing editor on decisions and things like that. But I'm at a safe distance. I'm not really caring what people say on the phone. As Nancy pointed out, she said, when I talked to the customers, they said they loved the customer service. They felt like the people really listened and were helpful. And she's like, and you say, Mickie, they're terrible. And she's like, they're not what you want, but you can't expect anybody to be a clone of you and to position every conversation the exact same way that you would. And so I just had to set back and focus on what I'm good at. I do watch the numbers. I do, look at advertising and promotion and stuff like that. So I'm still involved, but I feel like I'm at a safe distance. and I'm working in a place that is not hurting the business, it's actually helping the business. And I think that when I get into interpersonal relationships with people, I tend to be so much of a perfectionist that I don't feel that I'm tearing people down. I feel like I'm giving them advice to make them better, but it doesn't come across that way. So I'm just like, I need to just step back and let them do their job. They're doing well. They're most of the people that were there in 2015 are still there. So we solved the turnover problem. It really was me, and I recognized that and moved on. Another example of something very similar was I used to send in this marketing class I took that Nancy was part of. It was a mastermind. I was in it for many, many years. But one of the people had suggested that you send what they call a shock and awe package to new customers. And it's like, it's really meant to impress them and be over the top. And so I put a lot of Baltimore stuff in there. We had Baltimore crab seasoned chips. We had a little action figure of Edgar Allan Poe and a little raven that you pressed a button and it would go, nevermore, nevermore. It was a lot of fun in a box. I also sent my book in there in a letter, but it was just a lot of little toys and whimsical things, and it was like $60 that I put into that box, and I shipped it to people. Some people loved it. I mean, they put it on their blogs. They had unboxing videos and stuff, and I got a lot of great publicity out of it. But someone reached out to me and said, I appreciate it, but it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I kind of felt it was unprofessional. And I was like, okay, I appreciate that. And so, I think that other business owners, especially if you're MBA, you'd be like, it's just one person's opinion. But I had learned about A/B split testing in my marketing mastermind many, many years ago. And I learned you could also do it with business processes. So I took everybody that on board that year, and the first person that came in got the shock and awe package. The second person just got a book that I was already sending and this letter, and we put it in a overnight envelope and just mailed it to them. It was I think priority mail, and we just did that back and forth. Half the population over 6 months received the shock and awe package, and half the people received the book. And at the 6-month mark, we started to see a little bit of a change where the lifetime value of the people that received the book and not the shock and awe package was a little bit higher, but it wasn't really statistically relevant. At the 1-year mark, it was like 40% better than the people who received the shock and awe package. At 2 years, it was 2.5 times the lifetime value of the people who received the $60 book. And I think at a little over 3 years or so, it had gotten to like 4 times the lifetime value. So the shock and awe book package stopped, and just now my spend is like under $20 to send the book overnight rather than that. So I saved money there, but I also realized that I was turning people off. People looking for a press release distribution company. I don't know that they appreciate quirky and fun. They want a bit of professionalism, I think. So that saved me a lot of time, and I was really open to testing it. And I think at the 1-year mark, we had already stopped the shock and awe package. And as we continued to look at that 6-month population as it aged, it was a huge difference. And so 4 times the lifetime value of just receiving a book, that's telling you that the shock and awe package is not being received the way you wanted it to be.
Yeah, you seem like the kind of person as well that's like really switched on. So you're always learning, you're always improving, you're taking in advice. And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people hear advice and they go, yeah, whatever, they're wrong. Or they read something going, oh, I know better. But at least you try things out. So you've mentioned that you are part of or were part of a mastermind. I'm wondering what other forms of learning you do and where you do your learning. Is it books, podcasts, YouTube? Like what kind of places?
It's mostly books and podcasts. The great thing about the Kindle is I can fly through nonfiction. I read fiction and poetry so slow, but like in one weekend, I can finish 3 or 4 nonfiction books. certain topics. Right now, I've been really diving into book marketing. We used to get a lot of self-published authors who would do press releases with eReleases, but over the past 7 or 8 years, we're getting a lot of traditionally published authors. So people who are with Knopf and HarperCollins and places like that are coming to us saying, "Hey, the publisher only will do marketing for the big guys, and they're cutting us loose and telling us that we have to do our own marketing." And so I'm just like, I guide them through a press release, but outside of that, I'm not much help. So I'm wanting to learn a bit more about the marketing world for books, because I do think that that's kind of interesting. And I think that it does show that I think that the publishing industry is really just trying to preserve capital and put the onus on a lot of authors. And so I feel like maybe I can learn a little bit and be able to convey some of that knowledge to these people.
Lovely stuff. And do you have like a favorite book, like a book that really changed your life, whether it's fiction, non-fiction, doesn't really matter? I'm curious.
Sure. So the book for me that really opened my eyes was the 80-20 of sales and marketing. I think it's got a subhead, but if you just type in 80-20 sales and marketing by Perry Marshall, it's really good. It's sort of it gave me permission to fire some of my customers, where you realize that like 80% of your headaches in your business are only caused by 20% of your customers. And it's not always exactly like that, but that Pareto principle is at play in so many aspects of your business. You don't even realize that like maybe 80% of what you're doing day to day only moves the needle 20% in your business. So focus on something else that moves it more. And there's so many different little ways of looking at the Pareto principle in a business environment. And I found that book is really great. And I still recommend it again and again. And I don't see that book ever not being relevant. And I just really, it opens my eyes in a way that's just really compelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad you recommended a book there that's not like trendy or anything like that. You're like, these are principles, this is necessary, it'll always be relevant. So for the people that are listening now when this comes out, fantastic. But for the people that are listening 5-10 years from now, there you go. The 80-20 rules of sales and marketing, or something close to that, by Perry so-and-so. Mickie said it much better than I did. So Mickie, I want to ask you a question that I ask every single guest, and the answer is unique to you, but the question's the same. The question is, what is it about what you do that brings you the most joy?
I think for me, it's the wins for small businesses. When you can make a real difference in a company. I helped somebody write a release that was in a waste management business where they built waste management facilities, and his boss tasked him with it, and he was just like over his head. And we finally got it done and out there, and one of the waste management trade publications picked it up and wrote an article about them. And then like a couple months later, he called me and said, "I'm getting a promotion, and it's because of that press release." I'm like, "What happened?" And he goes, "Well, it got that one article." He goes, "But this in Australia, we were contacted by a municipality, and they were just like, how much do you think it would cost to put one of these waste management facilities in one of the cities here in Australia?" And they said, "Oh, we could do some math on shipping and freight and stuff like that." And they came back to him and said, "Hey, it looks like it'd be $8 million. And they said, "Okay, we want 6 of those." And so that, 8 times $6 million, that was a very big job. And you just hear about these little wins again and again with businesses. It's not every article is going to do that, but a lot of them do, and a lot of them drive sales, and people have really fun experiences. We had a company that makes these character ducks. It's called Celebriducks, and it's some licensing of celebrities, but it's mostly like Shakespeare and historical figures. And he was on the Tonight Show, and he was on Late Night with Conan O'Brien, and I think he made a duck for Conan. And it's just fun little experiences like that where, a little small business gets invited to these, TV shows and things like that. It really is an opportunity for small businesses who are doing something really unique and different to really, get their moment in the spotlight. And it really usually does provide lasting sales and experiences. And it's just one of these things that I love. And when I saw it work for me at that telecom research company, and now I'm able to replicate it with some of my clients, it just makes me feel really great. And I just feel like I made the right decision, because a lot of people felt like I should just have become a PR firm and gone for big ticket contracts and work with big giant companies. But my heart was never there for big giant companies. I have a soft spot for small businesses, and it's probably because of my grandfather. He was a serial entrepreneur. He had an ice shop where he sold ice, that would be in grocery stores. He had a restaurant. He had a marina, a hotel, and then when he retired, he owned a clam shop where he would buy clams from people who dug them out of the water there in eastern North Carolina. And he got bored easily, so he was always moving from business to business. But it really just drove something in me that's like, wow, it's exciting to be around lots of these small businesses. And it still is, I remind my staff to let me know when we have fun, quirky clients, because we see them all the time and they're just used to it. But for me, now that I'm a little bit removed, I don't get to see them as often as I used to. And so I do like to share in some of the fun businesses that we have and some of the fun wins that we have for these businesses.
Where can the people find you online?
Website's eReleases.com. All my social media is in the lower right. LinkedIn's the only one I really log into. I have people that handle the rest. But if you have any questions, or you're looking to even have someone look at your first release, maybe that you've written, and there are a lot of templates on my website, and I do believe that most people can write a release and give it a go. We'll always look at it for free. You can just email the staff, allow 1 to 2 business days for them to take a look at the release and give you some feedback and maybe some pointers on how to improve it. But we're there. We're always available to help people and walk them through the PR process. And again, that masterclass at eReleases.com/plan, PLAN, is a great place to start. Small commitment, and I hope your mind will be blown away with all of the opportunities that are out there.
Thank you for listening to People Explained. New episodes come out every Monday. We would appreciate it if you gave us a review on Apple Podcasts and shared this episode with a friend.